I'll give my thoughts on the Biden address tonight. We're going to talk about Dome, Christopher Wray testified before Congress, all that and more coming up on I'm Right. Okay, so we finally heard from Joe Biden. Before I get into that, I should explain why my voice sounds terrible. My youngest son, as I was leaving the house, told me I sound like the guy from the Ford commercial. So obviously, a little bug of some kind. I'll be fine, but got to be here tonight. Tonight's the night Joe Biden addressed the nation. But look, he didn't say anything there that was surprising to anybody. It was all a lie. He's not doing anything for the good of the country or anything like that. We all know exactly what happened. And sometimes knowing what happened can actually lessen the impact on you. It can have a lesser impact on you than it should. And here's what I mean. Allow me to explain. Look, Joe Biden got run out of office after the majority of the Democrat primaries across the country. Joe Biden, the clear primary winner. Now, you can argue he shouldn't have been, or I can argue he shouldn't have been all day long. Joe Biden was the clear primary winner, the man who was about to accept the formal nomination as president of the United States of America. Powerful people within our government and outside of our government decided they didn't like that anymore. And they just decided, well, remove him. And they did. We now know, courtesy of New York Post reporting, that the plan was to dump Joe all along. Now, granted, if you've watched this show for any length of time, you know that because I've been telling you that. What? The plan was to dump him all along? And now they're trying to say the health cover-up began as early as 2021. Okay, now let's clarify something about the health cover-up. The health cover-up didn't begin in 2021 because I was here talking about it and you were here talking about it when Joe Biden ran against Donald Trump the first time. It was obvious something was wrong. Granted, he's worse now because you don't get better when you're in that medical condition. He's much worse now, but we all knew it was wrong. How many times did we sit here and talk about this? Remember when he got busted? He did the sit-down interview and he got busted. They didn't account for the reflection. He got busted using note cards. Someone was behind the camera holding up flashcards for the guy. Joe Biden, the cover-up began from the second they rolled Joe Biden out there to run for president of the United States of America. All these people were lying about it at all times, and they all did so. Why? Well, for the exact same reason they just kicked him out the door. They did so because of power. Now, I've said something before, I'm going to say it again. Joe Biden, after that debate, Joe Biden went through what I have called the asking phase. You heard me say it here, that he's in the asking phase right now, where they were slowly leaking to the media. Pelosi meets with him. Well, Joe, maybe it's for the best. Obama meets with him privately. Joe, don't you think it's for the best? That was the asking phase. What I said to Joe Biden, not personally, obviously, but what I said was the telling phase was about to get here, and we now know, courtesy of leaked comments from Nancy Pelosi, that the telling phase was here. How bad would that telling phase have been? Well, I want you to think about this. Just put this in your mind. Robert Hur. You know who Robert Hur is. He's the special counsel who was investigating Joe Biden and the fact that Joe Biden illegally took a bunch of classified documents that weren't his. Robert Hur sat down with Joe Biden for a deposition. Now, pause for a moment. Think about this. What do we know about Joe Biden's public persona over the last couple years? Well, here's what we know now. We know that everything is structured. He is in such bad shape mentally that even when he meets privately with his cabinet, they have to submit their questions and talking points ahead of time, and they're given a time when he will call on them privately. Joe Biden is given specific instructions when he gives a speech on where exactly he walks out to the stage. And then when he's done, where is he supposed to turn and walk off the stage? He has been coddled like a child because he now has the mind of a child. What I'm trying to tell you is the Joe Biden we have seen publicly, wrap your mind around this, that's the best Joe Biden looks and sounds. You realize that? That's the Joe Biden with the script. Everything's laid out. Okay, do this, this, and this. Read this off the teleprompter. Call on this person. That's the Joe Biden hopped up on whatever drug cocktail they have him on. That's the Joe Biden where they've allotted time for him to have maximum rest. The Joe Biden you have seen, the Joe Biden I have seen over the last few years is the best Joe Biden is in any given day. So back to Robert Hur. Joe Biden had to sit down and he had to give a deposition to Robert Hur on tape. They recorded this. This was behind closed doors. This wasn't for you. It wasn't for the cameras. And Joe Biden knew that his Attorney General, Merrick Garland, because he's a piece of crap, would cover that up. How bad are those tapes? We now know the federal government is coming out now. They're saying they, quote, found the missing transcripts of the tapes. If Joe Biden didn't make this decision, I'm telling you right now, you were going to listen to those tapes on the nightly news and they were going to be ugly. And now you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the system. You just watched it in action, told you about it a million times. You know what it is. The system is bigger than any one man. The system is vicious, violent, deadly when it has to be. The system is essentially this. All of our institutions are now commanded by the same poisonous communist ideology, and they all now work together against you and against your country at all times. The system is much more powerful than presidents, FBI directors, billionaires, you name it. The system is this gigantic evil thing that governs over us now, and the system simply decided, primary, no primary, we're done with Joe Biden. He's a liability. Get rid of him. And the system obviously decided right now that Dome was going to be the nominee. It's obvious. There was, as soon as Joe Biden announced that he was dropping out, everyone was trying to play chess with the whole thing. Who's it going to be? Might it be could it be this senator or this? And it was very obvious. I came out here right away and I told you it was going to be Dome. It was obvious because you saw the system line up behind her. All the board of directors of the system, from the billionaires to the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. Dome's practically just accepting the nomination now.
So, Wisconsin, I am told as of this morning that we have earned the support of enough delegates to secure the Democratic nomination.
Wow. Really got out there and earned it, didn't you, Dome? Look, Nancy Pelosi ran out the president of the United States of America and installed Dome. Chuck Schumer ran out the president of the United States of America and installed Dome. I mean, here was Schumer yesterday.
So now that the process is played out, from the grassroots bottom up, we are here today to throw our support behind Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm clapping. You don't have to.
And here's the real truth of it, and this is the sad truth. You know about the system, you know what it does, you know how evil it is. The sad truth is the Democrat in your life, the liberal Aunt Peggy in your life, whether it's your mom, your coworker, your brother, whoever it may be, they're going to be wearing a Kamala Harris t-shirt. They're going to put up a Kamala Harris yard sign. They're going to act excited to vote for Kamala Harris. They just had the man who was about to be the nominee removed from power by the system. Dome was then installed into power by the system, and the liberal Aunt Peggy in your life is going to pretend to be happy about it. Why? Because Democrats are herd animals. They are truly, truly a sad, sad lot. And this is from me. You know I'm more than willing to insult Republicans, both elected officials and voters, at every front. The truth is, Democrats move, I call them a herd, but Democrats move as a mob because they are communist revolutionaries. They have always understood the real strength they have is in their numbers. And so they will move even in directions they don't want to move. Like lemmings, they'll go running right off the end of the cliff because they understand their real true power is in the mob. So they will line up behind Dome now. They will pretend to be excited by Dome now, and we're going to have to endure that woman for, well, hopefully just about 3 months. And you're going to hear all the normal things you remember you heard when Barack Obama was running. Even though Kamala Harris is a DEI hire by Joe Biden's own admission, you're going to be called a racist endlessly if you point that out. The question is, are you strong enough to stand up to this kind of criticism?
This is an organization, this is a right-wing campaign that's going to be racist, misogynistic against the vice president, but we're going to stand on the issues and what really matters. It's the fact that she is qualified. They want to call her a DEI president or DEI candidate. She has more experience than Trump and J.D. Vance combined times a million, right? She worked at the state level. She was the attorney general. She's vice president of the United States. She was a senator representing one of the largest states in the entire country. And so these are just racist dog whistles. Whenever you hear DEI, I want you to think about the N-word. I want you to think about racial slurs. That's what they actually mean.
Here's what I want you to think about. That human being there, hate him all you want, what he's doing has a purpose. That purpose is to let the nice people, to get the nice people to be quiet. Are you one of those nice people, a people pleaser? People are born this way. Either you are or you're not. But that's the point of a lot of this communist propaganda. It's racist. It's saying the N-word. They're trying to get the nice people to, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I don't want to be called a racist. It's why single women are so susceptible to communism. Don't fall for that at all. She's a DEI hire. She's a disgrace. Every part of her career has been an embarrassment. All that may have made you as uncomfortable as my voice, but I am right. We have a huge show for you. Christopher Wray testified today. I'm doing good news on the local level. We have so many things I want to get to. Before I get to that, I want to talk to you about your cell phone. I don't need you to change your cell phone. Keep your freaking phone. All your numbers are on there. Keep your phone number. What a pain would that be? Change your phone number, but change your cell phone provider. Pure Talk, you see, Pure Talk, they actually love you and share your values. T-Mobile does not. Verizon does not. AT&T does not. And when you switch to Pure Talk, not only do you save a fortune, but you're supporting a company that shares your values. You know, while the others are giving to Black Lives Matter and Planned Parenthood, Pure Talk gives to veterans. That's what this company is all about. Go to puretalk.com/JesseTV and switch. We'll be back. Let's talk about some good news. Local good news. Remember, local news, local politics, it's not sexy. It's not the city council race and the voter registration in this county. These are not things we celebrate, but this is where power is actually acquired. We focus so much on the White House, we forget that. Joining me now, my friend Cliff Maloney. He's the founder of Pennsylvania Chase. And he has, we'll get to some other things, some news out of Bucks County, Pennsylvania. First of all, Cliff, what's Bucks County, Pennsylvania? Where is this place? I'm just kidding, I know, but tell everybody.
Yeah, it's a Bucks County, eastern PA, outside of Philly. It is a bellwether county. What I mean by that is statewide elections and heck, even national elections. Bucks County can typically decide and show you which way the country's going. But we've officially flipped it. I give major credit. It's now a red county. Scott Pressler deserves tons of credit. Early Vote Action, Turning Point Action, our group, Citizens Alliance. Finally, the right is coming together, and we're tackling the things that the party, no offense to them, has failed to do for years. And so you see these activist networks and these activist groups going out there, working the fairs, working the events, the gun shows. And for this county to flip, I think it is a major, major problem for Democrats. And Jesse, another number I'll share with you, since this conviction, the amount of votes that have been net gains for Republicans, and I'm not even talking about since the assassination attempt, but since the conviction, I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of votes across Pennsylvania that are now registered more Republican than Democrat in the state where Trump only lost by 80,000 votes. So I'd rather be sitting in our seat rooting for the Republican than trying to figure out the path back on the Democrat side. The momentum is with us.
Okay, Cliff, what do you make of that particular thing? Because Democrats very clearly thought that convicting him of a felony, running on, well, he's a convicted felon, they thought that would be a win for them. And while obviously you don't have to convince me that that only makes me mad, but the norms and normas out there, I figured it would sway a lot of them. Well, I can't vote for a criminal. Are these convictions so transparently political that it didn't sway even the norms and normas?
Yeah, and to be honest, Jesse, it surprised me. If you would have told me a year ago that the Mary Jo beer can voters wouldn't bite into this apple and say we can't vote for a convicted felon, I didn't have that much hope. I thought it would work, and luckily for Trump and for people that believe in trying to restore the country, it backfired. And it wasn't just the convictions. I mean, first they weren't going to impeach the guy, then they impeached him, then they weren't going to charge him, they charged him, they weren't going to convict him, they convicted him. Now we're still debating if they're going to put him in prison. It doesn't look like it now because I think they're finally learning their lesson. And then, my gosh, the guy gets shot in the face, right? So I think all of these things have created, politics is a crazy game. It is a crazy world. And there are major players trying to figure out these variables to control us, right? This is about actual control and power over the people. And I think right now, Democrats are just running scared. They are scrambling, and they're going to have to try to figure out how in 2-3 months they can present this former narc just with a horrendous kind of unknown record, backing the Green New Deal, being this radical. How are they going to put together a message that connects with mainstream America? I wouldn't want to be them right now.
How does she play in Pennsylvania? Because I realize there are very much at least two different Pennsylvanias. The Pennsylvania where I grew up is Amish country and it's farmland and that's the Pennsylvania I know. But I know there's a Philly side of it that's not the one I grew up in. How does Dome play in that state?
Kamala has a major inner city problem. And that is that I think a lot of people just would assume the black voters are going to move back in her direction. Center City, Philadelphia and Center City, Pittsburgh are trending Republican. I know this sounds crazy to people. I want to be clear. I'm not saying they are Republican, right? But I'm saying that the registrations in the inner cities are trending Republican. Now, listen, the outer parts, I'm not talking the suburbs, but the outer parts of the city, of course, are blue strongholds, right? And then the suburbs, they are blue, but the further out you get, obviously it becomes a sea of red. Kamala doesn't connect. I mean, I went to school in southeastern Pennsylvania outside of Philadelphia. My buddies, I don't care if they're black, brown, white, Asian, nobody is excited about Kamala Harris. And this is why, Jesse, I do think they're going to bring in Josh Shapiro as the VP. To win the White House, there are a lot of different paths, but I got to tell you, if you win Pennsylvania, the paths become much easier. And if you lose Pennsylvania, the paths become very difficult. And so I think you're going to see Harris pick a Shapiro. They're going to put a Jewish guy who presents himself as a moderate, but that somebody the radicals love. He can raise money, and he is very well liked in Pennsylvania. If they put Josh Shapiro on the ticket, I think it shows you how important Pennsylvania is, and I think it shows you that Kamala has a problem. The inner cities are not going to move for her the way that they typically would for a Barack Obama or a black candidate of yesterday. She does not connect.
Okay, now speaking of VP picks, that Shapiro pick scares me because it's probably the smart pick. What about J.D. Vance? Full disclosure, I'm a J.D. Vance fan. I'm assuming J.D. Vance plays pretty well in Pennsylvania. He's an Ohio boy after all. What say you?
I haven't seen this type of reaction from normal, everyday voters about a politician in a long time. And look, I'm not talking about the activists, right? I'm not talking about people on Twitter or X. I'm not talking about people that are looped in on every single vote in Congress. I'm talking about normal people trying to pay their bills, pay their mortgage, put food on the table, and take their kid to soccer practice. When my aunts and my cousins and different people that for their entire lives have been working class Democrat voters, Teamsters, they love J.D. Vance. It is one of the weirdest things I've dealt with, but I think we in politics Jesse, I'm not making fun of you when I say this, but blue collar guys like us, when you get into it, you forget that everybody presents himself as working class. But when somebody meets an individual that really pulled himself up, has a great story, and it's authentic, it connects with voters. And so I think the working class in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, all throughout Pennsylvania, I think J.D. Vance is real to them. He's authentic. And you compare that with these other politicians, and my gosh, they're exactly what you'd expect them to be. You know, the same old talking points. Josh Shapiro versus J.D. Vance, I think it's a challenge, but I think it'll end up being a huge win when people hear J.D.'s message.
Okay, and finally, the voter integrity situation in Pennsylvania. Everyone remembers 2020. Have things improved there? Are they going to improve there? What are we doing to try to take care of some of this stuff?
Yeah, well, look, here's the thing that I'm not supposed to say out loud. Even if they run the same playbook of 2020, which I think they will, right? Let's say you look at Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. A lot of ballots went out to people who moved out of state, but somehow they came back. A lot of ballots went out. We found out later some of those people were deceased. But they ran up the numbers in those counties where they had the votes. But remember what I said earlier, Jesse, through our work at PHH, we are finding that the registrations are getting smaller for Democrats, which means you have fewer ballots to mess with. You can only have 100%. People that say, 110% of people, no, that's not true. What they did was they made sure it was as close to 100 as possible, and we still almost won the state. So how do we win it? They're going to pull all their tricks in Philly and Pittsburgh. Yes, we're going to have poll watchers. Yes, we're going to be ready with lawsuits. We win it by going out with our 120 full-time ballot chasers to red counties where a Republican clerk will count the vote. Instead of 70% turnout, we got to get that to 80, 85. You do that in a couple of these key red counties, and we will win Pennsylvania, even with all the shenanigans that they pull, because they don't have the number of registered voters they need to steal it.
That's fantastic. Cliff, go get him, brother. I appreciate you. Thanks for the work you're doing. All right. Christopher Wray got in front of Congress today, was more forthcoming than he has been, even though I'm sure he's still lying through his teeth about everything. We'll talk to Julie Kelly about Christopher Wray in a moment. I don't know about you, but I need a good night's sleep. You know what I'm going to do when I get home? I'll just spoil it for you right now. Since the wife and kids don't want to hug me right now, I'm going to go home. I'm going to walk in the door. I'm going to take my gun off and put my stuff down, and I'm going to walk right to the kitchen, pour a little glass of milk, put it in the microwave for a minute, walk over to my little bag of dream powder from Beam. As soon as the microwave dings, I'm going to take that milk out. I'm going to pour my Beam in there, and I'm going to mix it all up, and I'm going to have this lovely little cup of hot chocolate, and I'm going to crawl into bed, and I'm going to sleep like a little baby, and I'm going to wake up feeling better tomorrow. Go have a good night's sleep like that, drug-free. Wake up feeling like $1 million. Shopbeam.com/Jesse Kelly. We'll be back.
Why doesn't the FBI disclose to the American people all of the investigative detail and evidence that you are gathering as it is gathered?
Well, we have tried to be transparent with both Congress and the American people as we're going along in the investigation, frankly, unusually so for an ongoing investigation, given the sheer nature of it.
Wow. I've been blown away by the transparency. I wonder if Julie's been blown away by it. Joining me now, my younger sister, the great Julie Kelly. Her Substack Declassified is top notch. Julie, okay, for those of us who didn't catch that lion snake today, was he being transparent? What happened today?
By the way, happy belated birthday to my much older brother. I did tweet that at you the other day. Aren't we so lucky to have Chris Wray being so transparent with us about the near assassination of former President Trump? We really owe him a debt of gratitude. So what did Christopher Wray do today? Well, number one, Jesse, Chris Wray was not on any sort of hot seat today, and he knew it. And look, compared to the performance that we saw by Kim Cheadle on Monday, you could have a stick in front of the House Judiciary Committee that would seem more forthcoming, more honest, have more integrity than what we saw from the now resigned Secret Service director on Monday. So Chris Wray, despite his claims of transparency, I mean, he did give us some basic details that they found 8 cartridges, he said, which I think he might have meant shell casings, that the suspect, the now deceased gunman, Thomas Crooks, visited that site 3 times, including twice on July 13th, flew a drone around the vicinity at about 3:50 and 4 o'clock that day, live streamed it. And so those were some of the details that he disclosed. Also, that there were explosive devices found in his vehicle, also at his home, and that he had a receiver on his body. It was shut off. So there was no way he could detonate those explosive devices that Christopher Wray said were rudimentary. Well, we've heard that too before, Jesse, the J6 pipe bombs. So we did get a little bit of information, but most of it, of course, he pivoted to the Secret Service, which is true. That is the agency responsible for protecting the former president. But we do not expect anything like a full, fair, impartial, thorough investigation from this hopelessly corrupt FBI led by hopelessly corrupt Christopher Wray.
Julie, one thing that did hit me as I was combing through a lot of this garbage today was while he wasn't that forthcoming, he was a lot more forthcoming than he has been in prior instances. What do you make of that?
Well, again, I think that he wanted to portray that he is trying to be as transparent and honest with the American people as he can. So I will say, and you are correct, Jesse, given Christopher Wray's past performances, this comes across as perhaps his best. So I hate to compliment Chris Wray in any way, but he definitely came across, at least, that he wants to be a partner with Congress, with DHS and others to get to the bottom of what happened. So I do think that he sort of conducted himself well. Now, but pivoting to other issues, if we go back to January 6th or other corrupt elements of the FBI, he became his old defiant, indignant, closed up self. And so he did not answer questions about CHSs on January 6th. He wouldn't answer questions about who built the gallows. He said he really didn't even see that when Representative Tom Massey brought that up. So let's not allow his performance today, where he did come across better than usual, to deceive the American people that the FBI is going to conduct a fair investigation. And I really hope Congress holds his feet to the fire in what he's saying about being transparent. This cannot be the last we hear from Christopher Wray until whatever report is released on what happened on July 13th.
I want to talk about Kim Cheadle for a moment. Obviously, you brought her up. She's resigned since then, and it's not as if you or I are shocked when we watch these officials sit in front of Congress and get real close-lipped. This has been the hallmark of these dirty commies for a while, but she was almost bizarrely so, almost flippant. What did you make? It was odd, even for these dirty commies. I felt like her testimony on Monday was odd. And really, it fueled a lot of the conspiracy theory fire that's out there now. It was so odd.
It was, I think I wrote to my Substackers that it sort of made my skin crawl at certain points, Jesse. Unfortunately, this woman represents the real crisis in American government right now, and that is unaccountable, unrepentant, heartless, bloodless individuals like Kim Cheadle. She expressed no emotion about what happened on July 13th, except when she, again, like Chris Wray, became indignant about the integrity of her office, and the buck stops with her and she takes full responsibility. She expressed no emotion about what happened to Donald Trump and his family, or to the family of Chris Cavatori, or the other 2 who are injured, or the millions of people who have been traumatized by this. So she really, Jesse, represents what we've been talking about, you and I, for years. And that is the real people who run our government are really deranged individuals like Kim Cheadle. And that is a crisis that we know the Republicans have allowed. In fact, they have fostered individuals and officials like Kim Cheadle by holding no one responsible. So you go from a Lois Lerner to a Jim Comey to an Anthony Fauci to a Kim Cheadle who can't even express a little human emotion at the thought that a former president and the front runner for the 2024 presidential election, that his head was almost blown off in broad daylight before the entire world. She feels no remorse about that whatsoever.
Julie, I thought how the Democrats handled today's hearing with Christopher Wray was pretty revealing. Here was this little doozy.
When I applied to be an assistant U.S. attorney, I had to go through a background check. Do candidates for the FBI have to go through background checks?
Yes.
Would someone with dozens of felony convictions survive a background check for the Bureau?
No.
So they would never be hired by the Bureau?
No.
Well, clearly the Bureau has, you don't have to comment on this, I know you won't, but clearly the Bureau has higher standards for their hiring than one of America's great political parties.
Imagine what could have happened if we had spent these thousands of hours of staff time and those millions of taxpayer dollars addressing even one aspect of the political violence that now threatens our country. Perhaps had this Republican majority lifted a finger to help a nation that is awash in guns, the assassin Butler would not have had such easy access to the weapon he used to fire on that crowd.
Julie, it's all about power for these people, isn't it? There is no country. There is nothing else. It's just power.
Right. Adam Schiff, we believe, first of all, you are the last person who should be talking about integrity or background checks. Let's do a background check on you right now. Furthermore, the idea that FBI officials and agents are above reproach. This agency has been run by criminals for the better part of a decade. Anytime any of them are busted with illegal conduct, the DOJ refuses to charge them. So how would we have FBI agents or prospective ones who can't pass a background check because they are immune from any sort of prosecution, regardless of their criminal behavior? But yes, everything is about politics to these people. Again, people like Adam Schiff, Jerry Nadler expressing no remorse or regret over what happened. Adam Schiff beginning his statement going directly to the lawfare against Donald Trump. Those are the sort of people, unfortunately, that we have to share this country with, but also have great power. And God forbid that they get control of the House or again, because we will see this escalate to a dangerous level. And speaking of political violence, it turned very violent today in advance of the speech of Benjamin Netanyahu, police having to deploy tear gas and other measures against demonstrators on the Democrat side, by the way, who became violent against police early on.
Yeah. Gosh, I'd love to tear gas some Democrats. I did notice this from Kamala Harris's little rally. Here it was.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
She's not going to win, right?
Oh, I hope not. And look, a lot of people have already noted this, Jesse, you probably have too. This is her honeymoon period. We have all the sheep in the Democratic Party fall in line instantly. What Joe Biden did, the Democrats who bullied him out of the race, including Nancy Pelosi, her second insurrection actually worked. The first one didn't, but her second insurrection against her own party's leader did work. Look, Jesse, I hope the Trump campaign takes that clip and I hope they intersperse it with everything they could tag Joe Biden with, what Kamala Harris was just talking about, being a predator, being a fraudster, using his office for his own gain. Yes, Kamala Harris, you do know someone like that. You've worked side by side with him for almost 4 years, and you did nothing but be complicit and then cover up his own criminal conduct, the Biden family crime racket, and certainly his accelerated decline that we have seen over the past 12 to 18 months. So Republicans can easily throw her words right back in her face. They're focusing on her being a prosecutor because she has no record as a U.S. senator, certainly none as vice president. All she has is the destructive record of the Biden presidency to run on. That's why they're going back to 2010 when she was California AG.
No doubt. Julie, thank you, my man. I appreciate you very much, ma'am. Thank you. All right. Communist John Denver, Randy Weingarten's still out there giving these really loud, really awful sounding speeches. We have one of the Moms for Liberty, who's fighting back against that. We'll talk to her in a moment. Before we talk to her, you know what I've got right now? Because I'm not feeling that great. You know what I've got? A little cup of coffee. A little cup of blackout coffee. This was my little reward to me for coming in today. You see, blackout coffee's glorious. They share my values. They love guns. What kind of coffee company loves guns? They love guns. They talk about God. This is my coffee company. They mail me the best coffee I've ever had to my front door at great prices, and they share my values. Go get your hands on some blackout coffee, all right? blackoutcoffee.com/Jesse gets you 20% off your first order. We'll be back.
Progress is indeed possible, but so is the eradication of the rights and freedoms we hold dear. It is seldom a dramatic event or attack that lets fascism in the door. The violence comes later, after they are voted in. Voting is still our best defense against tyranny and fascism. When the history books are written about this moment, let them record that we the people united, mobilized, and voted down this existential threat to democracy and freedom, that we continued the march for progress, that we laid the foundation for a better future, and that we sought to create a more perfect union. Progress is possible. Keep marching. Keep marching, 'cause your ancestors are...
Sorry, I had to take my earpiece out until she was done shouting like that. Why does she always do that? Joining me now, Tiffany Justice, co-founder of Moms for Liberty, former school board member. Tiffany, the shouting, I mean, yeah, she's a crazy, dirty communist and I can't stand her, but the shouting, it's too much. It's too much.
I think when they don't have good points, they just have to get louder, honestly. I mean, and Jesse, I mean, did they talk about education at all? During that convention? I've heard, anti-Israel stuff. I've heard her, saying we need to vote, but I didn't hear anything about the fact that kids aren't learning to read in America's public school classrooms.
Tiffany, that's probably the thing that has hit me the most, especially in recent years, about these filthy teachers unions, is they don't even really pretend to care about the kids anymore. They're really, really naked now. They're just exposed, and it's very obvious what they are. They're Democrat activist groups, and parents are waking up, aren't they?
We are waking up, but you're right. The teachers unions are the foot soldiers of the progressive far left. There is no doubt about it. 99% of the donations that the teachers unions give go to Democrats, and they are the boots on the ground getting out the vote. And so moms and dads are waking up. I'm sad to say that we didn't wake up earlier than we are right now, but we are mobilizing, and we realize the influence that teachers unions have had in our kids' education and on school boards. Certainly, I think they spent like $180,000 in one district on school board races. And so Americans need to know that we need to put money, time, and effort into reclaiming and reforming America's public schools. We ceded the ground to the left, and this is where we are now.
Tiffany, I want you to talk, and I'm going to give you the floor here, about specifically that effort. This is something I talk about as often as humanly possible on my show. The school boards are how we take back the country. It's not the White House. Now, that matters, but we take back the country from the bottom up. And people don't realize it just takes effort. They're all watching right now saying, well, I could never. I'm not a public speaker. I'm just a mom. I'm just a construction worker. Everyone has I'm just a thing. But that's exactly the people we need there, right?
Absolutely. And I'm just a mom. In 2016, I was a mom of 4 who was volunteering at my kids' school. And I realized that the school wasn't doing very well, that it was kind of falling apart, and that there were a lot of kids at the school that weren't learning how to read. And I started asking questions. Now, the system does not like when you ask questions. So I asked more questions because of that. And I ran for school board. I wasn't even a registered Republican until 2016. I had no party affiliation in Florida. The truth is that now is the time. If you're looking at someone else to be a leader in your community, the truth is that you need to be looking at yourself, and you need to step up to the plate. And that's what Moms for Liberty members are doing. We only endorse in school board races, Jesse, and we've had over 380 school board members win that were endorsed by Moms for Liberty. So that's amazing. The change that you can make on your school board is incredibly important. The largest amount of money that is spent in your community is normally on the school board. The school district in your community is often the largest employer of any group. So the impact that you can have on your own local community on school board is incredibly important. And we have school board races we have primaries coming up. And then in November, we have lots of school board races around the United States. So if you don't want to run for school board, see how you can get involved on a campaign. That's my best advice right now. Go to someone who's running for school board and say, where do you stand on parental rights? Will you help defend and protect my parental rights? And if the answer is yes, the next question you need to ask them is, how can I help you?
But what if people want to run, but they're afraid, Tiffany? Surely they're not qualified enough, right? Surely that they're going to get into office and be surrounded by all these brilliant people and they'll feel dumb, correct?
No, you should absolutely. First of all, I think COVID showed all of us that there were a lot of people that were elected that were really idiots who didn't know what they were doing. And they were all too happy to abdicate their authority to bureaucrats. That's what I found when I was on school board. I looked around at the school board members I was serving with who were supposed to be Republicans, and they just wanted somebody else to make the hard decisions for them. The truth is, when you're elected, the buck stops with you. And so if you sat around during COVID and you said, oh my goodness, there are all these bad policies that are affecting my kids, the way that you change policies is by getting involved in politics, because bad policies are hurting our children and our families. So you need to get off the comfy couch and figure out how you run for office, and then just get in there and do the job like you would want someone to do the job for you. We're very capable people who can learn to do lots of different things. So running for office shouldn't be too scary, and we should be willing to get involved.
So from being a politically uninvolved mom of 4 in 2016, I believe is what you said, to now co-founding Moms for Liberty, would you please explain just how big and influential this group is now? I'm wanting you to brag on yourself because I want to prove to people that this can be done by normal people. How big is this group now?
Yeah, so we started with 2 chapters and $500 in Tina Deskovich's back bedroom. We made T-shirts, and we sold $150,000 worth of T-shirts in our first year. We self-funded. Now we have over 300 chapters in 48 states with over 130,000 members and growing every day. We just had a huge win in the 10th Circuit against the Biden administration and the DOE, if we could talk about that. And that's going to help protect current members and all future members from any Title IX regulations going into effect in their communities. So we are growing by leaps and bounds every day right now.
Talk about this win before I let you go.
Yeah, so in the 10th Circuit, we came forward and we had 4 brave moms who said, my children will not lie at school. You will not compel their speech. And so we sued the Biden administration and the DOE, and we had a huge win, a preliminary injunction. And the judge just clarified recently on that ruling that all current members of Moms for Liberty and any future members of Moms for Liberty, if your kid goes to school, you can go to our website, join or update your member information and put in your child's school district and school. We will not give your private identifying information information, your name, but what we will be submitting is a list to the court where these new Title IX regulations, these radical changes that will put boys on girls' sports teams, boys in girls' bathrooms, will encourage secrets to be kept from you as a parent. If you have a Moms for Liberty members kid at your school, then that school cannot implement these changes. It is a wonderful ruling. We are incredibly thankful for it. And that just shows the power of so many people coming together and, just putting our foot down and saying enough nonsense. We're taking our schools back.
Tiffany, I applaud you. I need to come see you guys. I'm going to talk to you soon. Tiffany, I appreciate you very much. All right. We have Light in the Mood. Next. All right. Let's lighten the mood. The House of Representatives. I have great news. The House of Representatives is going on vacation. They are not going to be in session. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, with all the problems we have, they need to be in session. No, we have all those problems because they're often in session. And when they're in session, they do things. It's a wonderful thing. These people cannot assault us, at least for a little while. That lightens my mood. I'll see you tomorrow.